Before we start the show, I want to remind everyone that while the SAG-AFTRA and Writers Guild of America strike is going on, we can still support those who are picketing for a better future. Some of you are wondering, how can we support our wonderful creative artists who are on the front lines fighting for better residuals? You can visit the Entertainment Community Fund website and make your donation there. I will also include in the description other donation sites you can visit and help support the cause. However, if you are unable to donate for those in need of the strike, make sure you spread the word on various social media sites you're on. And to all the people out there who are protesting, the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast supports your efforts and will continue to do so until a justified deal is made. Without your hard work, spending hours upon hours, pouring your hearts and souls into making these wonderful films, we wouldn't be able to experience such amazing stories as we've been able to do so for over 100 years so far. Keep up the great work, guys, and stay hydrated. Hello, listeners! Welcome to the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have Joey Magidson, who is the editor and host of Awards Radar. Welcome to the show, Joey. How are you today?
Hey, I'm excited to talk about one Oscar category for a change, as opposed to 20.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Big fan of the show, by the way. I think I already told Miles that off air. Wasn't sure if he already passed on to the word to you. But love what you guys are doing. But speaking of which, even though I know what you're doing, and I wanted to ask for our audience, would you care to explain what exactly you do for a living?
Nothing, according to a lot of people. No, I run Awards Radar. It's a website that covers the entertainment industry, film, television, so on and so forth. My thing is the awards. It's what I have been told I'm good at. And, we try to give you a sense of what's going on in the season and predictions and discussion. It's part of a larger group of people who do this, because I think anyone who assumes you can do one-stop shopping is kind of silly. Nobody has that kind of time. So I long ago realized, someone like yourself, you don't just listen to one podcast. You don't just go to one website. You go to a million. You go to a bunch, and you listen. That's where people kind of figure out these outliers. It's like, why does everyone say that, Brendan Fraser or Austin Butler is going to win? Why does this one person think Colin Farrell is going to win?
Yeah.
I think they just want that to happen, and that's cool. But like early on, and I've been doing this. This is now my 16th year in doing this. Not Awards Radar, but yeah, I started as a young one, and pretty quickly I realized you can kind of figure out who's saying what they want and who's saying what they think will have happen. And listen, I'm not shy about my opinions, but I prefer to be right, and it's nice to know a little bit about what you're talking about.
Yeah, you just gave me flashbacks to when I wanted to believe A Star Is Born could win more than just song, and then as the weeks went by, I'm like, no, Rami Malek's winning lead actor, unfortunately, and I was hoping Cooper could win that Oscar, but who knows? Maybe Maestro will be his, overdue win. We'll see. I mean, yeah, that's
possible.
A whole other conversation.
I'll be able to tell you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. So, we'll I keep forgetting it's showing up at Venice. But we're not here to talk
maybe
about
elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe elsewhere. But yeah, we're not here to talk about that at all. We're here to talk about something else. But before we do, I have one other question I want to ask for you, all Joey. Right. It's always tough to ask someone what their favorite film is because it's so hard to narrow it down to just one film. So I just want to ask just a broad, general idea. What's your favorite genre of film?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me my favorite film, and I was just going to go movie 43.
Oh.
No. I'm honestly, when I've been asked this on like dates and stuff like that, I usually I'll tell her like good movies is my kind of cop out, because I see everything. Mm-hmm. But if I had to pick a genre, it could be ironic because of what we're talking about, I do have a soft spot for like the romantic dramedy.
Oh, okay.
Depending on my mood, Miles has joked about this over the years, that you can kind of tell where I am in life by my number one movie of the year. Because like some years it's like, oh, Blue Valentine, Argo, like those, you were in different moods. A Star Is Born. Blinded by the Light,
Mm-hmm.
the Disaster Artist. Like, things are going better or worse for you depending on what's going on. But no, like a funny movie with some seriousness in it, a little bit of love story, perhaps not necessarily, but always hits a nice little soft spot. It really doesn't matter, honestly. The only ones they'll high fantasy is a little tough. Sword and sandal,
Yeah.
dragons and shit like that. Magic is not my favorite thing in the world, but if done well, Dungeons and Dragons,
Yep.
totally, totally down. Listen, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Fountain, and that movie gets into fantasy shit.
Yeah.
It's all about the execution. Listen, my favorite movie of the year so far this year is Barbie.
Yeah.
It's all about it's the movie, stupid. Like, if the movie is good enough, you're in. If the
Yeah.
movie's not good, it doesn't matter what the plot is. Like The Flash. Plenty of people didn't like that movie at all. I thought it was fair. It was fine.
Hmm.
But that's a thing that has all these things that people should love. But if it's not packaged in a satisfying enough package, I said package twice, nobody cares. It's the movie, stupid.
Yeah.
I'm stupid as in the producers.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm well aware. Yeah, no, it's and yeah, I mean, it's also very telling too of what audiences are in demand for, and the producers like, oh no, let's recreate what Barbie did so well with its success, or let's recreate this, and then that recreation, or regurgitation comes out like a year or two later, and it doesn't do well, and the producers like, why did this not work? It's like,
I mean, it happens with Oscar type things. Look,
yeah,
you have one type of biopic work, you get six more.
yeah, yeah, or even with some of these other yeah, not to
I
deviate
mean,
too much.
sometimes it's as specific as like Dexter Fletcher did a musical biopic. Let's give him another one. Like, you
Yeah,
just kind of keep going to the well.
yeah, and then even with the idea of just biopics in general, it's just like they're going to keep on regurgitating, even if they're like big flops. Like, I think Eyes of Tammy Faye was a flop.
It didn't do terrifically well, but it didn't really. I don't think they ever thought that was going to be a massive hit. I think they
Yeah,
were hoping for more early, stronger Oscar buzz to fuel some tickets, and that movie kind of backtracked into its Oscar buzz.
yeah, and it still got Jessica Chastain her Oscar.
I mean, she did a lot of that work more
Oh
so
yeah,
than
totally.
the movie. That
Yeah,
was circumstances.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that definitely was. Uh, but speaking of Michael Showalter movies, I
Yes.
figured let's get started with our conversation for today, in which we'll be discussing his 2017 film, The Big Sick. Just to let our audience know, this won't be a beat by beat bulletin presentation like you hear on other channels, but we will be discussing major spoilers for our discussion, so to speak. If you haven't seen the movie yet and want to hear our full thoughts on it, watch the film first and then come back to hear us talk about it in full detail. With that said, let's get started on my notes I have for the film that I discovered.
Sure.
In December 2015, Kumail Nanjiani announced that he would star in a film he co-wrote with his wife, Emily V. Gordon, and that he would get producers Judd Apatow and Barry Mendel to be a part of it under Apatow Productions banner. They managed to also get Film Nation Entertainment to finance the film. And if anyone out there is wondering what's Film Nation Entertainment, or why is that name so familiar, they've worked on various Oscar contenders like The King's Speech, was it Room, the not the
Mm-hmm.
was it Tommy Wiseau movie, the other
Tommy,
one with Brie
if
Larson.
only.
Yeah. Oh man, that would have been very, very strange. The Imitation Game and Promising Young Woman. In early 2016, the cast was chosen with Holly Hunter and Ray Romano playing Emily's parents. And unlike the other portrayals in the film, their roles were not modeled after Emily's folks, and didn't even get a chance to meet or to ask questions of what they were like growing up in this relation. Looking over this relationship. The script had been in development for over 3 years and was called a semi-biographical because, in addition to the two lead characters modeled after them, most of the events occurring during Kumail and Emily's relationship are noted as being portrayed to an extent in the film. The Big Sick
Yeah. So
premiered.
the
Yeah,
spoiler alert. Oh no, I was my dumb joke was the spoiler alert is the two of them wrote it, so it kind of tells you how it's going to end.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's it's not about the finish line; it's how you get there. Is what all
Yeah,
makes it.
yeah.
So The Big Sick premiered at the Sundance Film Festival on January 20th, 2017, and was acquired by Amazon Studios to distribute, beating out Sony Pictures and Fox Searchlight Pictures. Now they're called Searchlight Studios. Shortly afterwards, Lionsgate struck a deal with Amazon to distribute the film together in the US and spent around $20 million on marketing. Before its limited run in June, it also screened at the South by Southwest Film Festival and won an audience award in the category Festival Favorites. It also received a total gross of $56.2 million worldwide on a production budget of $5 million. Outside of its lone screenplay nomination for Kumail and Emily, the film received 6 Critics' Choice Award nominations, winning the Best Comedy Film category, 2 Independent Spirit Award nominations, including winning the first Screenplay Award for Kumail and Emily again, a Producers Guild of America nod, I believe, PGA nod, and 2 Screen Actors Guild nods, one for the cast ensemble and one for supporting actress for Holly Hunter, a Writers Guild of America nod for the original screenplay category. And yeah, it was, a decent success overall. As far as what the log line is for this one, Pakistan-born comedian Kumail Nanjiani and grad student Emily Gardner fall in love but struggle as their cultures clash. When Emily contracts a mysterious illness, Kumail finds himself forced to face her feisty parents, his family's expectations, and his true feelings. So, yeah, that was pretty much a mouthful of what I dropped on there for the notes that I found. So before I bring up my personal thoughts on the movie, I wanted to ask you, Joey, why you chose the film, and I assume this was a rewatch for you.
Yeah, this was a rewatch. A couple reasons. One, I really like the movie, so it's a good excuse to revisit it, because this is something I've actually talked with a colleague of mine, with Mike Ryan, is, it being an Amazon movie, you have to actually want to watch it. Whereas if this had been, let's say Searchlight had picked it up or something like that, I feel like so many more people would know and love the movie. Not that it didn't do well, it did fine, but it would be on TV a bunch. It would be one of those movies you scroll by and go, oh, I'm going to watch like 20 minutes of The Big Sick, and be like, oh, this is delightful. Also, completely self-serving of mine, it's one of my success stories. I really kind of banged the drum to get that screenplay nominated. So specifically this category.
Wow.
This was, I mean, I wanted it to get more, but like, I remember at one point telling Kumail, I think even just like on Twitter or something like that, that it was going to happen, to the point where I think on Oscar morning, I think he had tweeted at me and thanked me for it. Like, I'm sure there was a list of like, we have a dozen people we have to talk
of course.
to, but like, people in my position don't make these things happen. I want to be very clear, but it's part of the, if you're rolling like together a meatball, every little bit kind of, it just eventually becomes a bigger thing. If you don't do it and someone else doesn't do it, it's like that stupid thing about like, he said he was going to do it, but he said and then nobody did it when anyone could have done it. It's all part of a bigger thing. Mm-hmm. So, when you really are passionate about something and you feel like it can do it, it's worth going the extra mile. In the same way that we've joked over the years, Robert Duvall and The Judge was a nomination that happened because everyone sort of was like, oh, that seems like it could happen. And then no one ever bothered to be like, but the movie is only whatever, and he's fine. And like, there's all these other nobody ever bothered to present the case why not. And voters who pay attention just went, oh, I think I heard someone say Duvall was good. All right, good enough.
Yeah, he's like a previous totally Oscar winner, veteran actor. It's like, okay, we what's the 5th spot? We can't put Josh Brolin in for Inherent Vice because we weren't that big of a fan of it. So,
well, he ate the banana weird, so we don't like him anymore.
I'm sorry.
He ate the banana strangely, so we were mad at him now.
Yeah, exactly.
The voter who wanted Robert Duvall watched that scene in Inherent Vice and went, never mind.
Oh, what? Oh, you mean Josh Brolin?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The reason everyone watches him and goes, he's a riot in this movie, are the same people who went, you know what, but Robert Duvall is really doing something. There's a very different cross-section watching those two movies.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. But yeah, I never knew that you were like one of the many people who were championing this for like a screenplay nod. That's really surprising.
It was it made my top 10 that year. Like I was way into this film because it's something I like. It's not far removed from an Apatow style, romantic comedy, just with the true story aspect of it. And I think the when we get into it a little bit more, there's things I noticed on this viewing that made me even more appreciative of it. Obviously,
Okay.
I know where it's going, so I'm just kind of like, admittedly, it was kind of a passive rewatch,
Mm-hmm.
but there were very specific things that I noticed. And when we talk more broadly about the film that I'll get into, that I didn't catch the first couple of times because it didn't occur to me. But watching it this time, I went, there's more going on here than I realized. And I thought there was plenty going on here the first couple of times.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, this was my first watch, just like
Interesting.
20th Century Women. I'd been meaning to get around to it since I'd started seeing commercials for it, and it got the lone screenplay nomination.
Yeah.
And I think I said this on the episode before with Celia on 20th Century Women, in that at the time I wasn't like films just getting a lone screenplay nomination or just one Oscar
Yeah.
nomination in general, especially in the acting categories. They weren't really like a big priority for me.
For
You know,
sure. They can be, I don't want to say a fluke, but something that's not necessarily on an Oscar radar, not necessarily a mainstream film. You get a lot of things like that where you go, the hell is that movie? If
yeah,
you're not in the know. And how many people are gonna go seek it out? There's how many movies that you have to catch up on that you want to see,
yeah,
let alone to go, what's Captain Fantastic? What's At Eternity's Gate? They
Nocturnal
just don't get
Animals.
watched. Well, I mean, that movie shouldn't be watched for different reasons.
But yeah, no. So I never got around to watching it. I think my mom
Sure.
and my stepdad had seen it before. I think my mom recommended that I'd watch it. And I was like, oh, I'll put it on the list. I'll get around to it in the future. And then lo and behold, the podcast was created. I'm like, hey, it's on my list. I'll watch it. I'll
There
be
you go.
watching it. There's a couple of
How many
other.
of
Go ahead.
I about to say, how many of them haven't you seen on this list?
Uh,
Now I'm curious.
I've only seen. I don't have the list with me, but I think I've only seen about 20 of them in total, maybe 15.
Interesting.
But more of the recent ones. So like Logan, Molly's Game, I've seen.
Yeah.
Disaster Artist, I've seen, and then there's a couple others I'll be doing. There's one actually for the next episode, which I will not say what it is
Yeah.
on the air. I've already seen before, and I'll be rewatching it for the podcast. But there was a reason why I did Knives Out. That was one where I was like, okay, I want to do something that's simple and something that everyone's already like well known for, and the sequel
Totally.
just came out last year, so I could cover this at least.
Yeah.
But no. So yeah. So most of these will be first watches for me,
That's
unless
fair.
noted otherwise.
Yeah.
As far
Disaster Artist
yeah, go ahead.
was my second. Disaster Artist was my second choice. That was my other like, hey, because the New Statler and Weber, I'd been trying to get nominated since 500 Days of Summer.
Nice.
I mean, it took them making the Tommy Wiseau movie for it to happen, but we got there.
Yeah.
But no, it was, looking at your list, there were definitely. I mean, obviously, I've seen a significant portion of them, let's say, but yeah, I did immediately wonder, like, how many of these are a first watch? Because some of them are such sort of specific first watches.
Yeah.
Remove them from the times that they came out in, and I think the conversation is really different. So it's intriguing.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as like I said, it's my first watch of this. I'd never seen it before. I'm pretty sure I've never seen an Apatow produced movie before. I could be wrong.
You
But
probably have,
I,
but you just probably.
yeah, I know I definitely didn't see any of the directorial films he's done, like Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin. I've never seen any of them. I'm pretty sure he did Forgetting Sarah Marshall, or maybe someone else did
He
that.
produced that.
Oh, he produced it? Okay. I've never seen any of them that he's directed, and I know he's only a producer on this. And
Have you seen Anchorman?
Nope, never seen him.
Cable Guy? Superbad? Bridesmaids?
No, not Bridesmaids.
Begin Again? Bros?
No.
All right, so you haven't seen. Wow, you got a lot of Judd Apatow to watch.
Yeah, and part of the reason why I kind of stayed away from the Apatow, movies to begin with was, sorry for bringing this, crude, what do you call it, comparison together, but I'd always been told that a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, especially like the what was it, a couple of like the Spider-Man movies, and then like some of the Ant-Man and such, like they all felt like Judd Apatow comedies in terms of like there's not a whole lot of style or personality in their directing, but it's like a light fare to throw on. And I don't know, it was almost like, oh, okay, if that's what his comedies are going to be, then I'm not really interested. I don't know. One day down the road, I promise I will be watching more Apatow directed movies, because I learned the
Yes.
hard way over the years that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and you should actually, especially even if it's a director that you detest, it's like you should at least give them a try or a couple tries. Be
Totally.
like, maybe there's a movie on the list, like a Terrence Malick flick that you enjoy, or if you get through one, maybe there's something on there that you'll like. I don't know. Um, yeah. But anyways, yeah. So
Some great comedies there. I would recommend doing an Apatow related deep dive one day.
yeah, one day I will. As far as this movie goes, the Big Sick. So to condense it all down, I thought it was okay. I thought
All right.
it was an romantic comedies are always, or whatever you want to call this, a romantic dramedy or a romantic comedy. They're always tough for me to get into, because there's a most of them have these formulaic scripts. And not saying
Okay.
this isn't completely formulaic. There's definitely moments of this film that made it stand out a bit more than others that we'll get into in a minute. But I always have a really hard time, because it's almost like you've seen all the, yeah, I get it. We just said before, it's not about, how it ends. It's the way you get there, your destination to that ending. And most of them just feel very contrived. They feel very lazy. And this is one of the few exceptions, I will say, that felt very genuine. For
Mm.
starters, you have Kumail and Emily writing a story about themselves. I think
Yes.
Emily went on record on the Hollywood Reporter, I think, said in the roundtable, saying that they had to wait. They waited for at least a good decade or so to get around to writing the story, because they realized if they wrote it too soon, it was too, like, okay, you're still in that period that you kind of want to distance yourself from history, so you're not too attached to the project as much. But at the same time, you do want to put enough passion and effort into the script. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there were some elements to it that we'll get into. But yeah, overall, I just thought it was an okay romantic comedy as a whole. And there's been a few out there that I do love. Silver Linings Playbook I thought was a pretty funny comedy. And
Mm-hmm.
it stars someone who's in the movie, by the way, in the Big Sick, who plays Kumail's father. I can't remember for the life of me what his name was. Um,
But yes,
but
he's in both films. He's
but
also
yeah,
like
go
he's a
ahead.
huge star for I think Kumail had actually said at the time when they were casting that role, he'd be like the dream. He's like getting Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they
and
and someone was like, "Why don't we just go out to him?" It didn't occur to him to go out to him because like that's a massive star where I'm from. Oh wait,
yeah,
he never gets calls to work over here. He'll say yes. Like,
yeah.
oh my god, I get to work with like an A. This is like an A+ list star.
Yeah, totally. And but yeah, no. So yeah, like I said, again, I thought it was okay. It had some really nice moments and genuine moments for sure. But
Hmm,
that's my quick take on it.
fair
So
enough.
what so I'm curious though, for your rewatch, since you've already seen this before, what were some elements to this film that you thought, "Oh, I'd never noticed on, before on my other subsequent viewings or first viewing?"
Something very small, but really struck me this time. Now I'm a big Zoe Kazan fan to begin with, so I loved her in this film. I
Mhm.
didn't realize until I watched this time she sounds so much like Emily in this movie,
Okay.
which is not a thing that you're going to notice unless you've heard Emily. Kumail and Emily used to do a video game podcast years ago called The Indoor Kids that I had actually that's how I first became aware of them, and I've interviewed them both over the years and obviously heard her. They did their pandemic podcast and stuff, and I know Zoe a little bit. Like I've seen her in basically everything she's done. Like she doesn't sound particularly like that. The cadence that she found sounds like Emily Gordon, or to make Emily Gardner, and I just thought that was such a specific take that I'm sure was so useful for Kumail for working again. Playing like essentially revisiting slightly altered scenes from his past with a different person playing his wife. It really struck me as this really effective point and choice as opposed to just kind of playing the role and finding it. And I thought it just made it all the more real feeling. I really appreciated that and I think there's a real nice pace to the first act of how they sort of get together, and it
Mhm.
skips over a lot of the stuff that I think a lesser movie would get into. You don't really need 3 scenes of them like becoming like a complacent couple before there's an issue. We kind of get
That's true.
to them being a couple, and then it's like, okay, now that you know they're a couple, let's get to the meat of what happened and where they were when she fell ill. And I thought that was really interesting. We spend way more time with their sort of casual flirtations, and it gets to show you more about them in terms of how they deal with each other. Because so much of what Zoe Kazan has to do in this movie is she's weighted in the beginning and the end of the film. She's essentially absent from the middle of the movie. So
Yeah.
she has to make an impression in the first act because you need to remember why, when you meet her parents, why are they so upset? Here's the person they're so upset about. Why on earth is Kumail hanging out still? If she's not as compelling a character, you'd be like, well, but you were kind of done. Why don't you just go home? So I think, the sort of on the first watch, I was watching it almost as a Zoe Kazan film. But since then, obviously, it was more of a Kumail and Emily movie. So this time I kind of got back to the appreciating Zoe in this one. And I think she kind of got the most screwed of anyone in terms of when the award stuff came about, because it just never occurred to anyone to talk about her because she's missing from one act of the film, whereas I think she's one of the best parts of the movie. In the same way that, like what she said last year, it just never occurred to anyone to like give her a buzz. It was Carey Mulligan, even though they're essentially playing two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually, that was something I didn't even realize either, was the fact that Zoe is missing through at least the second act of the movie. Like, she's in it for the first act, and then she shows back up at the end when she's resuscitated and she's alive. And come to think of it, another movie that did that, I'm not sure if you've seen it or heard of it. I've only heard of it because of Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel's review of it. Ghost of Mississippi, I believe. Where
I know Ghost of Mississippi.
Oh, okay. Where they talk about how they never addressed the father who was shot. I'm blanking on the
Edgar Evers
name. Edgar Evers, thank you. And they never showcase who he was like as a family man or even as just a person in general. And all they're kind of focusing on is more about the court case. And it's like, but you're kind of missing
it's
that.
Whoopi Goldberg's. It's Whoopi Goldberg as the widow. She's the one kind of pushing the memory forward. I mean, that's a very sort of mainstream, inspirational, true life courtroom drama kind of. It's the kind of movie that I like it, mind you, because I like a courtroom movie, and I think it's fairly well done. That's sort of the tail end of Rob Reiner as like an A-list filmmaker. But it's the kind of thing that now would get made fun of as like this kind of like mawkish thing. It's very 90s. I appreciate it. It's also a movie filled with problematic people. It's Alec Baldwin and James Woods.
Yeah.
So it's like whoever wins, we lose. But
yeah. Oh boy.
And an era where James Woods got nominated for playing a racist, as opposed to just being one.
Yeah, and
he never let that roll.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation we can have.
There's no one problematic in this movie. Let's be very happy about that. It seems.
Yeah. But yeah, so
cut that out in case someone turns problematic.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything I was going to say about because while I'm bringing up my notes, was there anything else besides you talked about Zoe emulating a similar voice to Emily's voice, and then the fact that she's not in it the second half of the film. Was there anything else?
Some of that is also, well, I mean, to that end, to finish on Zoe and the Emily performance, so much of that comes back into play at the end because, in a lesser movie, she wakes up happy to see him, problem solved. I would say about half of the third act is her being like, last I remembered, I hated you.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't like you. Like, whatever you've been up to with my parents is between you guys. Like, I'm like, we're done. So I obviously you kind of know that's not what it's going to be, but the movie gives a lot of weight to that.
Yeah.
And sort of lets it play out calmly and naturally. Also, I think the comedy aspect, it's really hard to do stand-up comedy in a film. It's not usually funny. Mm-hmm. It's not visually interesting. And I think that Michael Showalter has a background in that. Obviously, Kumail has a background in that.
Yeah.
His friends, two of them are A.D. Bryant and Bo Burnham, like successful comedians.
Yep.
There is a lot of surprisingly decent comedy. Like, it's never going to be super funny because nobody gives you their best work for free.
No.
But it plays like this level of comedian,
Mhm.
someone who needs another job, but possibly has a future and is working out material. You see like a movie like Punchline, that Tom Hanks movie from the 80s. It didn't work because
Oh,
nobody,
that's right. Yeah.
it, he's not a stand-up comedian. Sally Field's not a stand-up
Nope.
comedian. They just didn't know how to do it. Or like, listen, I like funny people more than a lot of people. It's an Apatow movie, so you haven't seen it.
Mhm.
But Adam Sandler hadn't done stand up in a while, so they sent him out to do stand up again to be like, if you're gonna play a stand up comedian, we're gonna remind you how to be a stand up comedian. And this has some decent stand up comedy stuff, and also just the cultural comedy is surprisingly lived in, because obviously Kumail, coming from a very personal place, but you know it's very easy for that stuff to get sanded down in a movie, especially when he's the only person representative of that community. Michael Showalter is not, Judd
No.
Apatow is not.
No.
They could have easily, wanted to go in a much, more generic direction. But
Yeah.
it's to Judd Apatow's credit. He said this about other projects also when he made Trainwreck with Amy Schumer.
That's
The
right.
original
Yeah.
script was, which another one that wasn't far from being on this list. It did not come super far from a nomination.
Mhm.
Her first draft that he had worked with her on was a little bit more fictionalized. He's like, no, lean into the stuff like about your dad and like do personal stuff. Like I'm here to make your movie, not a movie. And so I would imagine he was very supportive of Kumail going like, no, explore Pakistani culture. Like, I imagine it's funny that this movie kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit because I feel like nowadays there would have been a little bit of a kerfuffle, and it wouldn't have been a big deal, but someone would have been annoyed that when he goes down to pray, he just puts the alarm on and just like fucks around for 5 minutes to make his parents happy and doesn't even pretend to pray. Like somebody would have been like, "That's insulting,"
Yeah.
and it's probably like a very accurate detail of that sort of Pakistani American being like, I don't do that. My parents don't even know I don't do that anymore. But like you know, I'm here. I want to do this, but
Mhm.
I'll go downstairs because it makes them happy. Just like the whole going along with the arranged marriage thing, it makes them happy.
Yeah. Even I mean, obviously, I'm not Pakistani. I'm a white American.
No,
No. Yeah. Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
I came on this under false
No. No. No.
pretenses.
No. 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 Please don't. Yeah. But I will say, like I was raised as a Catholic. And even I thought
My
as a kid.
condolences.
I'm sorry.
I said my condolences. I'm a dick.
Yeah. But I no longer practice the faith. For obvious reasons, I'll talk about some other time. Um,
Did
but
you just put your hands up like this, like look around?
yeah. But no, there were times where I just thought like, like why do I need to pray? I don't really have, so like I could relate some of that on just a general basis, with him screwing around in
Well,
the room.
that's what makes um, specific is universal. And I think
Mhm.
the thing that producers and studio heads, we're seeing this with Barbenheimer, um, mistake something specific working as okay, that worked, but if we made it universal, everyone it'll work forever. It's not that way. People look to specificity as opposed to a generic thing. Like if you watch a movie about just two generic attractive people going on it, like that's why so many of these things flop because you don't have an in. But something very specific, I'm not Pakistani, but
Mhm.
like you said, you found something relating to your upbringing, which is
Mhm.
different, but the feelings it generated, the memories it generated, I identify with that particular slump shoulders look, or conversation. When you tell a specific story and when you lean into what makes your story unique, other people flock to it because one, they have their own unique story and they'll find something within it, and two, 9 times out of 10, people don't want a generic story. People want to hear about something that they didn't do. We don't watch things to reflect what we do. Otherwise, we'd be watching movies about me sitting on my ass watching movies. That's not a fun movie
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah.
Like you want to see other experiences reflected. And I
Mhm.
think the more movies do that, the better. That's why we see these movies that are starring people who didn't used to get to be stars, telling stories that didn't get used to be told. They do well because there is a surprising, not surprising, but studios are surprised, yearning for something else. That's why this movie was a little bit of a hit. Also, it was like, oh, I haven't seen this story told, especially
Yeah.
starring these two people.
Yeah. Yeah, there were definitely other moments in the film too that I appreciated everyone involved did. Like the fact that one, when they, like you said, they were able to create something that was specific for a general audience. Like, okay, like because of this, we're able to sort of have everyone sort of be like, okay, I can get up behind some of this.
Yeah.
Just, because it's, and the other thing too is that whenever you do a semi autobiographical film itself, you never want to create the movie so that so the creators are the only ones that love it. Like the
No.
idea is you want to make sure that everyone is able to enjoy something out of the movie. And that's something
Well,
I did
that's why.
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just gonna say that's part of them waiting so long to write it down was you have to be able to change things. I mean, one of the funniest moments involving this film is when they won the Spirit Award. They got up and they thanked her parents, and I don't remember if Emily started or if Kumail started, but one of them said, "Who, by the way, they never had an affair, or my dad never cheated on my mom." And Kumail goes, "That we know of."
That we know
And
of.
she's like, "What?" She's like,
Nice.
"Why would you say that? Oh my god!" Like it was
Yeah.
it was a very natural, like, "Oh my god, Kumail, you just said that in front of like the world." But that's the thing. That was a creation for the film of like we need some tension between
Mhm.
them because that makes these characters who kind of just appear in the movie have their own life as opposed to they're living for their daughter. There's so much more that you get
Mhm.
in only a few scenes with that. Kumail has a conversation with Ray Romano about that. But for the most part, it's mostly subtext. It's mostly explaining why her parents would be sort of at loggerheads to some degree, why they would want him as a buffer in a way. It's narrative story. It's a narrative trick, but it works and it makes you care about these other characters that I think in a different movie, in a lesser movie, only Kumail and Emily would care about them.
Yeah, definitely. The one scene that you brought up with Ray Romano talking to Kamal in the bedroom, it was the line about being in love with someone after cheating on them. He's like,
Yeah.
"Do you realize what you just said?" He's like, "Yeah, they didn't come out right." I was like, that genuinely was very funny. It was like one of the few moments I was like, "Okay, that was funny."
I
Um,
like that. My similarly good line is when she yells at the heckler, and when they get back to the apartment, and Ray Romano goes, that was sexy," and Kumail goes, "Yeah, no, that was really sexy. No, like it's like sexy cool, not sexy attractive. I'm
yeah,
gonna stop saying sexy now."
yeah,
And that was a very good like digging yourself deeper. Like my favorite line in the movie is still when Ray Romano goes, "So 9/11. I never had
yeah,
a conversation about it." And I like Kumail's. I remember howling in the screening room when it was like, "Oh, it's a tragedy. We lost 19 of our best men." Because
yeah,
it's such good timing, and it's a line that he'd written down years ago and went, "I would love to do this to someone," and went,
yeah.
"I got it." Because it's a
Got it.
great addendum to the him and his brother when they're at the batting cage
Yeah,
when they're arguing, and then like the other people are looking and they just go, "We hate terrorists."
yeah. Holy crap. Yeah, no, that was funny. I forgot. Yeah, that was yeah, that was pretty
9/11.
funny.
It's a tragedy. We lost 19 of our best guys.
I also love too the line that the doctor gives to them, like, "Don't read this as a bereavement room. We didn't have
Yeah, yeah, we just ran
any
out
other
of it.
spaces. Yeah, we just ran out of it." I'm like, that was great. I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
That also feels like something that might have happened too, where they were just like, you know what, one day this will be funny.
Yeah. I'm looking through here.
Or Ray
Oh, the
Romano
other
just
thing.
talking about like the tuna sandwich.
Yeah,
Tuna's a risk, but I rolled the dice, and we're not by water. I guess we are by water, but it's a lake, so I don't know. There's no tuna in the lake. He's just like
yeah.
making conversation about tuna because he doesn't know how to be quiet in a moment that he's like racked with fear.
Hmm.
It's that's why you get a Ray Romano. Though I did this viewing wonder who else they could have gotten. Not that Ray Romano wasn't good. Ray Romano actually had a little Oscar buzz at the time. Holly Hunter got most of it, but
Yeah.
nowadays, like if they had made this movie today, I think it might have been Adam Sandler. Like that's very much an
Interesting.
Adam Sandler like dramedy role. Like if you take Adam
Yeah.
Sandler from Hustle and put him in that,
Okay.
or listen, I'm the only one who likes Men, Women, and Children. But you take that sad, mopey Adam Sandler from that movie and put him in this and give
Hmm.
him this script. That's a really good performance. Not to take anything away from Ray Romano. I think Ray Romano is fantastic. But I
Yeah.
think I think you need a comedian in that role so he can
Yeah,
hit the
definitely.
comedy marks. And comedians are sort of very specifically good at sad mopes because
Hmm.
most comedians are also sad and mopey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting though. Yeah, if it were made today, it could have been Adam Sandler. Yeah, because I've seen
He
him
might have
in a
he might
couple.
have done it too.
Yeah, because I haven't seen Hustle, the one he did for Netflix, but I did see Uncut Gems and Punch Drunk Love, and even though I'm not
Yeah.
really usually the biggest fan of Sandler, he's really good in both of them. I thought.
I would even say, listen, I you probably wouldn't like Men, Women, and Children. Nobody does except me. But
Yeah,
he's not the reason that doesn't work. Listen, I've said it on the podcast, so you might have heard the story. But I interviewed Jason Reitman and told him that Men, Women, and Children was like my #2 movie that year, and he said, "Fuck off." He's like, "You're lying." Like even he couldn't believe that I liked the movie.
wow.
He asked me, and this has happened one or two times. More actually, well, whatever. It happens infrequently, but it usually is the mark of a good conversation. He asked, "If you were me, what would you make next?" Like I knew the things that he was like talking about, and
Mhm.
at the time, I didn't realize he was talking about Ghostbusters. I think he was kind of chumming the water to see if I would say Ghostbusters, because then he might have been like, "You can't tell anyone," but like, I'm gonna do Ghostbusters. He might have been like, "Don't write about it." Like,
Okay.
but I said, well, you know the kind of movies that I like. He's like, yeah, that's what people want more of. So like, very self-aware. It was just like, okay, I'm glad you like it, but like, let's be clear, I'm aware it failed. Which is
Yeah.
funny because I was interviewing him for The Front Runner, another movie nobody cared about or saw.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
listen,
No. That.
I think he's a more interesting filmmaker than people give him credit for, but
Mhm.
you know, he doesn't seem to get the three strikes though that people get, which I'm fine with. I don't think anyone should get three strikes and you're out. But the people who do sure seem to look a certain way compared to the people who don't, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't get three. If you're many people, you get one. And sometimes none.
Yeah, there's a couple directors on the list for the show
Sure.
there's a couple on there. I won't name who they are yet, but when I get around to them, I might name who they are. As like, yeah, you could tell they were like this was like their one good movie, and then afterwards they made a string of like not so great movies.
Well, there's a
Um,
difference between the ones who just keep getting to make whatever movies, and you're like, all right, so now just nobody sees your movies, but you still make them. And then there's the ones that are, like, listen, we're in a world where there's a new Ava DuVernay film coming out this year, and nobody's talking about it because her
yeah,
last movie flopped. So she had to go and make a little tiny movie just to be able to get something done besides going to TV. So,
mhm.
you know, I think, a couple of years ago, prior to the flop, I think would have been seen as like an A-list filmmaker. Like she's one of the new filmmaking voices, and all of a sudden, not so much. I mean, listen, I don't think it's going to happen. These movies make $1 billion, but if Barry Jenkins' Lion King movie doesn't do well,
Ugh,
they're not going to bang down the door for the next Barry Jenkins film.
no, yeah,
I think even if it's terrible, it's going to make a ton of money because they make a ton of money. So, in a
yeah,
way, it's an incredibly clever choice by him.
and even if it doesn't go to a theatrical distribution, they could just dump it on Disney Plus and just call it a success.
They'll never do that because those live action remakes, which is they're going to pitch it as like just a prequel to Lion King. They make so much money. They print money, even the ones that
That's
don't
true.
really. So I honestly think Barry Jenkins, and then we can move back to Big Sick,
Yeah,
made a
yeah, sure.
really smart decision in being like, you know what, I'm going to throw on my resume. I had a movie that made $1 billion, or comes close to it, and I get to tinker around with the tech, and then maybe his next project is something that he knows is a 75, 80, $100 million movie, and he knows he needs to be able to, be like, but I made one already and it worked, so like you can trust me, because
Yeah,
there people say no for very strange reasons. So
yeah,
giving them no reason to say no is kind of the trick to a career in Hollywood.
yeah. It's kind of like that article that came out. I don't know how long ago it was, but there was an executive at Warner Brothers who just did not want to do a meeting with Chris Nolan on Insomnia, I think it was. And Steven
Yeah.
Soderbergh had to ask the studio executive, "Okay, I know you didn't like the movie. What'd you think of the filmmaking? I thought it was great. That's why you did it. That's why you take the meeting with Chris."
Yeah, because he didn't
Um,
like Memento, I think was
yeah,
the story. He didn't like, so it was like, wait, okay, you don't like it, but why didn't you like it? I couldn't figure out what was going on. Or I don't remember what the reason was. I didn't get it. But do you think a talented filmmaker made it? Yeah, yeah. So talk to the guy. Like,
mhm.
maybe he'll make your movie, but he'll make it with like a filmmaker's eye that like we don't have. Like it is there's a reason that people joke about who gets jobs and who doesn't. Like Miles and I have adopted F. Gary Gray as like the complete like platonic average of a filmmaker because he's just a work, or Antoine Fuqua as
Yeah.
just like their movies come in on time, under budget. He'll always work. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Most of the time they're fine, and that's what a studio head wants. That's what someone who's writing a check wants. Like Antoine Fuqua will not fuck up my movie, and that's all they need. Whereas, when in a bubble, if I told you could have Antoine Fuqua, you could have Francis Ford Coppola, you'd pick Coppola. But also, how many times recently has Coppola turned in stuff you've been like, oh, all right, like it's considered a risk. Look, he had to sell his wine to make Megalopolis, and listen to what's going on that set. So, risk aversion is the key to being a rich studio head, or being rich in general, I think.
Definitely.
I don't know. I'm poor.
Yeah, we both are. But going back to Big Sick, one other note I wanted to bring up, and I was really surprised by it, was I liked how they visually establish, obviously through montage editing, but I also liked that they established early on Kumail had like a what do you call it, like a little, I don't know, like a little chest, so to speak, of all the women,
like a cigar box.
Yes, there we go, cigar box. That's what they said, and it shows all the women that his mom's been trying to get to do an arranged marriage with, and he just throws it in the pile. And I was like, that was a nice way to visually establish. Okay, so this isn't the first rodeo for him, so to speak.
They establish it a little bit with the conversations, and like, oh, someone's stopping by. Oh, I bet it's a single eligible Pakistani woman. They set it up, but in case you don't get that, they double down with here's the box. Look how many other ones were here before the movie started, which is, that's your visual symbolism. Also, they hit back when Emily says, you know what's in mine? Arts and crafts and whatever the stuff. And then he looks at hers and there is that stuff, plus the pictures of her and him.
Yeah.
So they really do hit how the cultural differences and cultural specificities are there in a way that I think is not what you normally get with a movie like this. Like this movie, you describe it to people, sounds like 12 other movies you've seen before. I think it's only when you watch it that you get the touches, and also why it's Ray Romano and in the movie, why it's Zoe Kazan, why it's Holly Hunter. Like these are people who can say no to things if they want, and wouldn't just be in like a generic rom-com.
Yeah, I was going to say, even having, the idea of having Holly Hunter, I mean, I'm not familiar with her filmography, but I would assume for her, she wouldn't do like your standard, as you said, generic rom-com. Like,
well, I mean, she has the Oscar attention, and she has the Incredible. She doesn't have to work a day in her life if she doesn't want.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm set. I got my Oscar, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is a good point about that. I'm looking through here to see if there's any other notes that I wanted to bring up. I like the use of the dissolve cuts when Kumail did the one, was it the one man show? I thought that was a really nice way to establish, how long, like the time duration of what the show was going on for, outside of like the conversation the friend has, like, I got to leave as soon as this is over. Okay. And she goes, okay. Like I said, unless if there's anything else you wanted to bring up for our conclusion, and then we'll get to the Oscar, conversation, so to speak, on this film.
No, yeah, that's the next thing I have. So like, I'm good. Yeah, no, we can move on to the Oscar stuff if you want.
Well, while we're transitioning into that, do you have any other like final thoughts on the film itself, or anything?
I will say, obviously I quite like the movie. I think it's funny, it's moving, it's, you know what it is, it's just something well done. And I noticed that watching it last night, that like it's just a pleasurable experience. And we get sometimes a little wrapped up in what you want a movie to do, right? And you see different movies for different reasons. I see everything, but like, I watched Last Voyage of Demeter a couple days ago, and I had a miserable time with it.
Yeah.
And listen, I like horror, I like vampires, like all that shit. But at a certain point, I went, I'm not enjoying this. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you don't enjoy something, you really need something else to pull you along. Whereas if you're enjoying something, you're just having a good time. And I think this is a movie meant to be enjoyed while also just being a better script than you usually get with these, being better, having better performances. It's sort of the platonic ideal of what a romantic comedy could be, with the added upside of like the hook is, by the way, more of this happened than you probably were expecting.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a lot of these other movies that are just chores. Like, this is not a chore to sit through. Like, that's
No,
why I
it's
think it
not.
is true that, like, if this was on TV, people would watch it all the time, because you could
Mhm.
pop in and just like, oh, he's going to say the 9/11 scene,
Yeah.
or it's the it's going to be the one man show scene, or like you'll find a moment coming up where you're like, oh, I'm going to really enjoy the next line, even if it's just like some of the stand up stuff. Like I found myself remembering some of the lines. What if I did this? And the guy goes, and Bo Burnham's response is, well, what if you? And let me just throw this out there: quit comedy and never did it instead.
Yeah.
Just like little lines that you're like, oh, I remember that line. Whereas, if you're having a miserable experience with a movie, you just want it to be over with. Cough, Bo is afraid. But,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
God, I will never get 3 hours back from that. But somebody loves it.
Yeah.
Somebody loves it. That's the thing. Like, I'm very careful never to be, like, particularly mean in my reviews. Because, like, first of all, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
Exactly.
Everyone wants a movie to work. The reasons a movie doesn't work rarely has to do with the filmmaking or intent. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean everyone won't. Like, that's I give you my take, and I hope you take me as a learned individual, but I can't tell you how you're going to feel about something. The only time you can kind of go to take something really to task is if there's bad intentions. And that's, certain movies with a leaning in one way or the other, perhaps, maybe wants to change the world in a way that we don't particularly think is beneficial. But your average movie just trying to pass the time and make a few bucks, either it works or it doesn't, but it's not necessarily gonna change the world for better or worse. This one, I think, just, it's a shame that it's paywalled in a way, because if you could just stumble upon this movie, it would be, I think, very much on people's lips as one of the better movies of the last sort of decade. It's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And it's like you said, it's a shame that this, the only way you could watch it is if you sort of had to go out of your way to watch it on like
Well,
Amazon
now,
Prime.
I mean, you could have seen it in the theater.
Oh no, yeah, of
but
course, yeah. But now, of course, I'm talking about, and it's
by the
not.
way, solid showing in the theater, $42.8 million.
Yeah, domestically, I believe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
handful internationally, but especially in an era where comedy struggles,
Mhm.
it was a well-liked, successful movie. And I think if it had shown up on TV every 20 minutes at a certain point, it would have continued that and to grow in that estimation, as opposed to now it's kind of like, do you remember The Big Sick? And a lot of people go, oh yeah, that was good. But no one, how many people saw it a second time? Unless you have Prime and go, I'm going to go like fire up Prime instead of shopping, I'm going to watch a movie.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that happens that often.
Yeah. I was telling my grandma the other earlier today that I have like a shit ton of movies that I still haven't gotten around to. Obviously some will be on the list for the show, but there's others like I've never seen, like any of the courtroom dramas, like Witness for the Prosecution, Anatomy of a Murder, or even what was the other one? Judgment at Nuremberg. And there's even other ones like The Sting. I've never seen it before. A lot of Ingmar Bergman films as well. Even the I finally I think it was like last week or so, I finally got a chance to watch The Player, directed by Robert Altman, which I've never seen an Altman movie before. Oh yeah, it's fantastic, especially during this time that we're still going on as of this recording with the strike. And we support the writers and SAG, by the way.
Damn right.
But yeah, no, it's just I like I said, it's for movies like this, as you mentioned, it's not a chore like a lot of other romantic comedies can be, the lesser ones. And I'm glad that it got into the hands of Kumail and Emily, even though it's their own personal story.
Well, it stayed in their hands, I would say more, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. like they weren't willing to be like, okay, let's sell our story rights to some random schmo off the streets, and if we are going to write it, because even in some of the interviews that they stated, I think Emily had stated in the same roundtable too, that there were a couple elements of the story that while they were filming, they're like, this isn't working, we got to rewrite this, or we got to come up with something else.
Yeah.
So I thought that was yeah, like I said, overall it's a decent film. Even if it isn't made for me, I'm glad that it's able to get an audience out there. And I
Sure.
think if anyone is interested, like Joey, clearly is shown in this review, if anyone is interested in seeing this kind of, romantic comedy, I would recommend it enough, so yeah, that's my 2 cents as well.
Fair enough.
So going into the Oscar conversation, I wanted to ask, outside of, was this worthy of a sole nomination, a writing award, writing category in the original screenplay lineup? Was there any other nominations you wish the film had gotten, or would you have nominated yourself?
Oh, for sure. And it actually came very close, is the thing. So if you go back and look at the time, it got a PGA nomination.
Yeah.
It was the one that missed for picture. Like if you go back and look at the lineup, that picture lineup, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It could have just been 10 and had the Big Sick. It had a PGA. It had WGA. It had SAG nominations. It had Critics' Choice. Like it had Spirit Awards. It checked a lot of the boxes for getting into stuff. Mm-hmm. So Holly Hunter was seen as a little bit of a snub. That she was definitely 6th in supporting actress. She actually, Leslie Manville at the last minute comes and gets that nomination from her.
Yeah, I love that nomination from Leslie Manville.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I would have preferred Holly Hunter, but I can't get super upset about it. Best Actor was stacked. That was never going to happen. He would have also had to jump. 6 was James Franco, who was getting nominated until he was found to be a less than charming individual, and then Denzel gets in for a movie I don't care for. Yeah. For an actively bad performance, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, when we get around to the Disaster Artist and that director from Roman J. Israel has another film I'll get around to, and I'll definitely talk about those.
Dan Gilroy? Oh
yeah.
I mean, listen, one of his movies is good.
Yeah, no, we'll get around to it eventually, but Nightcrawler I think is really fantastic. I actually,
Nightcrawler is great.
Yeah, I got around to that down the road, and I'm like, yeah, it's actually a lot better than I remembered.
Took me a couple viewings to get into that movie, but once I did, I really liked it. But no, this Big Sick was also seen as like this was going to get Judd Apatow an Oscar nomination because he'd been seen as like not necessarily fringe conversation, but quite in the middle with 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up and Funny People and stuff like that. Of like, oh, like this is one of like the big comedy filmmakers. Like an era ago, they would have all eventually gotten a screenplay nomination. A lot of the generation prior comedy directors got nominated at one point, and him producing stuff. I mean, his Golden Globe nomination is for writing the song for Walk Hard. Like,
oh yeah, that's right.
Kind of backing into things, but there was getting the PGA nomination, having everything come sort of very close to it. It was the fact that it was I think a rom-com at the end of the day, and also there was the last gasps of sort of the streaming bias. It was going away, but it wasn't fully away yet. So I think when in doubt, it's easier to split your vote off somewhere else, not necessarily vote for this, not necessarily vote for that. And it came just a bit shy. I maintain it was 10 in picture. It was 6 in supporting actress. It was, I mean, I'm not sure where Ray Romano wound up because he didn't really get a ton of precursor notice, but he was early on, I think, thought as like, well, maybe he'll get in. Maybe this will be his thing. Like it was definitely seen as a contender in multiple above the line categories. It just kind of fell by the wayside. In my lineup, it would have cracked picture. Okay. It would have probably cracked actor, actress. I probably would have had all 4 actors nominated.
Okay.
Screenplay and picture. So I probably would have given it 6.
Given it the Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle kind of deal, like 4 actors get
I don't know if I would have gone director. I would have to kind of think back on what else. Um, Also, I probably at the time would have nominated James Franco and director, and I would have to reevaluate that.
Ooh, okay.
That's again, you get into weird stuff with that because I mean, I can still like the performance. I
Y-
love the movie.
Yeah, no, it's just
He,
yeah. Go ahead.
no, it's just that I everyone has their own take on that stuff,
Hmm.
and there's no wrong take is the thing. That's
Hmm.
why I'm sort of loath to discuss it over and over. I know I'm in a very privileged position, and that I don't give them any money.
Yeah.
Like Woody Allen doesn't get a dime off of me, so I'll watch the new Woody Allen movie just because I'm curious. But I
Hmm.
can't, in good conscience, tell someone they have to give him money if they find him to be detestable.
Yeah.
And listen, Woody Allen's a weird case because at best he's a creep.
Yeah.
We never convicted of anything, but at best you're like, there's something weird about what that just there's odd judgment going on there, and that's the best reading. Whereas with some of these other guys, there's layers. Aziz is not Harvey Weinstein, but
I
you
just forgot
certainly don't
about
want to
that.
be seen as, yeah, you're like, well, what, you forgot about Harvey Weinstein?
No, no, no,
Sit back,
Aziz.
I'll
No,
tell you
no,
what he's
Aziz.
up to.
No, 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 Aziz. Yeah.
But yeah, like there was, because if you remember, there was a time where sort of everyone was getting kind of painted with a similar brush, and we've gotten a little bit better about that. But because you want bad behavior to be called to the carpet.
Oh yeah,
But you
totally.
don't necessarily want everyone to have to go away forever.
Hmm.
It depends on what's going on. I mean, you hope people learn their lessons and emerge better people. From what I understand, it seems like Aziz has. Like Aziz, I think was very like taken aback by that and went, "Oh my God, that's how everyone saw that." Like I don't like seem to do the right work and is sort of more accepted. Whereas a Louis C.K. sort of skirted by a little bit and took that as like a reward. Like, oh, I can just go back to like I don't think he's doing that thing anymore, but he's sort of flaunting the fact that like I'm making all this money again. Whereas I don't know that that's the realm to take. And then there's the Bill Murrays of the world who have a brush with this and then go, maybe I should stop like being out there as much and like just take a
Yeah.
step back. And by the way, they're making a new Ghostbusters. I'll do that. By the way, Kumail's in the new Ghostbusters. There you go. I brought it back.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
I'm happy
Um.
for him.
Yeah. No.
You can tell.
Yeah. Well, I was.
You can tell he's excited to bust a ghost. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Totally. The other thing I don't think we even brought up in our conversation for the movie itself. Kumail is like, I did a list a while back of like various actors who've either been nominated for an Oscar either before or after or even during their time during like the MCU era, the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah.
Universe. And there's a lot of actors, and Kumail is like one of them. Then there's like an even smaller list of actors who got their Oscars either before their time, like after they were part of the MCU franchise or during their time. And
Well,
it's really
this was
interesting.
before, but yeah,
Yeah,
I feel bad for him because again, the guy who really knows his comic books, knows his nerd stuff, and I'm sure was like, I get to be in the MCU, like this is going to be awesome, and then it's the one that most people were like, no, thank you,
yeah.
through like no fault of his own. Again, like I actually
No.
think Kingo's one of the better parts of that movie,
Hmm.
but that's a movie I've not gone back to. Let's say.
Yeah, there's always movies like that for me where it's like I've seen it once and I don't know if I want to go back to it.
I mean, I mean, there's plenty of things I would rather watch less. I didn't like
Yeah.
dislike the movie,
Yeah.
but it was a weird mixture of, the Chloe Zhao direction was like, okay, some of this stuff is gorgeous, but the kind of autopilot action stuff that we expect to just be kind of fair or better was the weaker stuff. And I was like, wait,
Hmm.
that's that's kind of the stuff I thought they'd do for you in a way.
Hmm.
And maybe she had the cachet to be like, I'm gonna handle everything, and it just, yeah, I don't know, it had an odd feeling that like maybe it was also the time that we watched it at. There's so many different reasons that something works or doesn't, but yeah, no, it is interesting to look at the career path. Like Kumail is a successful working actor
Hmm.
and now successful producer, got the Emmy nominations just recently, but you know
Nice.
a generation ago, that writing nomination, there would have been so many more offers for stuff that they wrote together to write, and like both worked on projects, but the comedian kind of going a level up and showcasing their skills used to be a rocket ship, and now it's sort of a fleeting like fancy. And he'll never struggle for work, but especially as an actor who is very clearly not interested in like, I understand that because of the color of my skin, you want to make me this person, but that's
Right.
not what I want to do. That's not what I grew up liking.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know exactly who the comp would be because I don't want to be reductive in any way, but like, there's so many other actors of that ilk who would never have that issue. We see that very often with non-white actors, especially like, oh yeah, you're great, but like, don't you want to play a terrorist? Don't you want to play a member of the cartel? Don't you want to
Yeah.
do this? Like no, because once I do, you'll
Just
pretty
typecast me
much
as
kind of
that.
exactly like Demi Bashir, has an Oscar nomination and still has to fight to not just be like in the cartel every third movie.
Even Kiwi Kwan, he had that story going
Yeah.
around about how at the time, this was like decades ago, how he was only offered roles that were very stereotypical. He's like, I want to do
Mhm.
more, and there's not really much in Hollywood. So he retired and then became like a stunt coordinator for like movies like X-Men, and then was given the
Yeah, just
script for
wanted to
every
be
hero
in the
role.
industry still.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get more actors like him, more opportunities that aren't just like, oh hey, play a terrorist, or hey, play a cartel member or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully yeah, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens after this strike
Just I
throws
can't
over.
imagine what's going on in the industry. It would make me not super optimistic.
Yeah,
Can't imagine.
yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much our discussion for The Big Sick. Unless there's anything else you want to add, like award conversation wise for the film.
Um, no, I mean, yeah, I love that it's an Oscar nominee. I obviously would have liked it to had more nominations, but I think it's the kind of movie that more of these kind of films makes the Academy Awards more interesting. You look at
Yeah,
the things that people complain about. First of all, there's no pleasing everyone, so
no,
they can't try, and they go astray when they do try to please people. But I that year was the year of like Darkest Hour, right?
yep,
Darkest Hour is thoroughly acceptable,
hmm,
fine, whatever.
yeah.
If you look at these two movies, I know which one feels more like an Oscar movie, but
Hmm.
I know which one makes the Oscars a more interesting thing by existing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at Telluride in a couple weeks, then Toronto right after, and you see all these various films, and they get lumped into this is an awards movie, this isn't, this is that, this isn't, and we're slowly getting to the place where just like, oh wait, is the movie good? Does it have achievements worthy of recognition? Okay, so let's consider it. And the more we do that, listen, Everything Everywhere All at Once 10 years ago would have gotten a screenplay nomination. That's it.
Yep.
If, or it would have just been seen as too weird.
Or maybe just a
So
WGA nod and that's it.
exactly, it would have been like an indie thing and then
Hmm.
not translated. We are still fighting that fight, but more and more, if you look at what's getting nominated and what's winning,
Hmm.
it's things that are certainly not like out of the Academy's wheelhouse, but they're at least open to the possibility of other things. And part of that is younger membership,
Yep.
but also they're in front of them in a way that they didn't used to be. So that is objectively a good thing.
Oh yeah, totally. One last question I did want to ask before we wrap up the whole show.
Sure.
Who do you think was probably in sixth place for original screenplay that year for The Big Sick?
Let me go back to where I was looking there. So for those who don't remember, Get Out wins that year, and it was Big Sick, Lady Bird, Shape of Water, Three Billboards. It was Get Out or Lady Bird, I think, for that award, with Three
Yeah.
Billboards kind of like in third place. Big Sick was like a very safe fourth, I think, even though arguably as good as all the others. And then Shape of Water was, I think that was sort of a tacked on nomination in a way. Like nobody thought it wasn't going to get nominated, but that was the one sort of weakness. And it was interesting because of how kind of seen as weak the adapted lineup was.
Yeah.
That was, in terms of like six, I think the two options that I would say are one, I would have watched out for Coco because it
Oh.
was well liked, but I think trying to remember if what I had predicted because I want to say I probably had either probably had I, Tonya at the
I was
time.
thinking that too.
Florida Project was another one.
Yeah. It
But
got
I
the
think
Willem Dafoe nomination.
they struggle, I think, with Sean Baker and Chris Bergosh scripts because they assume it's like improv, and there are scripts, like there's obviously room for interpretation, but I think that was that, you know what the other one is, and I'm surprised it didn't get in a way, would be The Post.
Yeah, they got the Golden Globe nod for
Yep.
screenplay.
Josh Singer seems to be the king recently of like, this seems like a real safe Oscar movie. Nope, doesn't happen. But is the movie good? Yeah, the movie's good. Like, why doesn't it happen? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he co-wrote Maestro with Bradley Cooper, actually.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I look forward to that being a snub again this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Maestro, but I don't know if Miles told you off air, but I have a pretty risky bet on that I've had for like 5 years, I think now.
Tell me off air, I guess.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, really? Why did you do that bet?
All right,
but
I know
anyways,
something. We'll talk about it off air, but I know something about that movie, so we'll talk.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I was gonna say I, Tonya was probably 6th. Because I was struggling.
One of those
to think,
films was
because I was struggling.
They
to
all
think,
kind of jockeyed.
Yeah, I was struggling to think what the hell was number 6 that year, and I'm like, it's got to be I, Tonya because it got the BAFTA and the Writers Guild.
I think
nod.
those were kind of those 5. I, Tonya came on strong for a minute.
Yeah,
and then I think we all just, from what I remember, these things you forget about them so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There just wasn't room because I think the vulnerable one, people assumed the Big Sick would miss, but I was very confident in it getting in because I was like, no, it's going to probably come up short in picture and maybe supporting actress. That was kind of I thought she was going to hang on, but it's not going to go from like 3 or 4 to 0. Like it's going to hold on for screenplay, and then the weakest one would have been Shape of Water, but that was at worst 2 or 3 in picture at the time. So like, was it really going to miss on its screenplay? There just wasn't room. Is how it kind of shaped up. Like look at Adapted. You know, people wanted to kind of be like, oh, the Disaster Artist only. Well, you'll talk about it during your episode, but only got in because it was a weak lineup. Same with Logan and stuff, but. I don't know. It's maybe it was, but maybe also they were willing to, because it was a less clear cut. Here's what the adapted nominees are. Look at genre fare like that. Like I would argue, those 2 and Molly's Game, those are 3 really interesting nominations.
Yeah.
Granted, Call Me by Your Name is a kind of whatever winner for me, but I can't get upset that it's in there. Yeah, it didn't like blow me away. Oh, you know what? The other one you could have said was what could have been. I don't know. You get too deep into these, try to start to figure out like where was this movie, where was that movie, and I think it without having the knowledge still of where things were, it's hard to say. Like for original, like Dunkirk could have been right there also.
Yeah, Dunkirk. Yeah, that could have been a possibility, even if it didn't have a whole lot of like writing dialogue involved.
Well, that's what I think. Sabotaged that at the end. Not sabotage, but the reason it fell short was we're already giving it a picture and director nomination. It's going to do well below the line. Like, what about it is the least memorable? And it was the writing, even though it is like a precision film. Like everything is very specifically plotted out. Mm-hmm. So Christopher Nolan's doing just fine.
Yeah,
he's okay without that one.
I'm just glad he got his director nomination when he should have gotten it. Like, there's at least a couple of times prior to Dunkirk that it was like you could have given him a director nomination over said person, or whatever.
I mean, sure. I mean, and we're gonna see what happens this year. Right now, he's sitting very pretty to perhaps get the Oscar as opposed to just the nomination.
Yeah, for Oppenheimer. Yeah.
I mean, the more things don't come out, the better it looks for him.
Yeah, that's yeah, wow. I was not expecting that as a possibility. As like because when everyone had told me like, oh yeah, we're already deviating off topic here, but with Oppenheimer, I was told ahead of time like, there's a real chance that Chris Nolan could win. It might have been you who said that. I was like, really? Like, okay, we'll see what happens. I finally saw it. I was like, yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree. Because I thought after Dunkirk, I think he lost his chance of winning an Oscar period after, because I thought his best chance would have been Inception overall. And then Dunkirk came out. I'm like, okay, he's probably just going to be like happy I'm nominated in the club, you know, like PTA is, or some of these other directors like Robert Altman.
I mean, PTA came real close to winning right now. So, like, you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Last year was a very interesting original screenplay lineup because it came down to which guy that we keep saying we'll get around to eventually are we going to get around to. And honestly, I think they made the right choice because I don't think PTA is going to stop making interesting movies.
No.
Even if that was like uniquely kind of like a crowd pleaser, like that was a unique beast of like, it's still clearly one of his movies and it's shaggy and mangy and like a hangout movie, but also clearly is like working for people. And then Kenneth Branagh, who, one, I really liked Belfast, so I didn't want it to just like completely miss out, but also he's a little more hit and miss with his stuff recently. So this is a good one. Like maybe give it to him, and then you don't feel the need to like do more My Week with Maryland's.
Yeah, and it also helped too that unlike PTA, Branagh had like more wider range nominations of like, it wasn't just director in the writing categories. Like, oh yeah, he's also an actor as well, like a Clooney is, you know, or like possibly Bradley Cooper could be with Maestro, but we'll see. That's all. It's way too early to talk about that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for our discussion. I want to thank you again, Joey, for dedicating your time to be on the show. Before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in or where our listeners can follow you?
Sure. I will remind you, make the check payable to cash. And then you can find my writing at my website, Awards Radar. You can find my stuff on the socials, on Facebook and Twitter. I'm not saying X, Instagram, Letterboxd. I have a thing. I'm on Blue Sky and Threads. I don't really do a lot there, but I'm there. Give me another week or two, I'll probably be on OnlyFans. Like, we're everywhere. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can follow me and the show through Linktree under @Matthew995, where you can follow along on all my social media accounts, such as Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and Letterboxd. On the same site, I've also provided a link for where you can listen to more episodes of the show. And if you're interested in being in the hot seat like Joey has today, let me know, and hopefully we can arrange that happening soon. In the meantime, we hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.
Bye.